want to, I think we can go ahead and get going. So I will kick us off if we're ready. I just wanted to mention to those who are joining us live that feel free to use the Q&A section on Zoom. That's absolutely, Megan is ready and willing to answer any questions that come up as she goes through the information, and she is absolutely the person to be answering your questions. So feel free to use that. Michael from VisiSight's team is here joining me. He and I will both be monitoring that, and we will be sure to get to your questions, even if we don't get to them right away. Hang on tight, because we promise we will get them answered either as part of her presentation or at the end. We'll have a few minutes for Q&A at the tail end as well. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you all Megan Sturgill, who is the VP of Operations with VerticalVet. VerticalVet is a group resource community, but prior to VerticalVet, Megan worked in many veterinary hospitals. She's an LVT, she was a practice manager, and has over 20 years of experience in the veterinary industry. So she spent a lot of time making strategic decisions for practices, finance, marketing, hiring. I've talked to her about the whole range of things. So she is the perfect person to talk to you about GPOs and how you can really get the most bang for your buck for your practice. So without further ado, I will pass it off to you, Megan.
Thanks, Cassandra. Super excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me on. GPOs are near and dear to my heart, obviously. Kind of work for one, but aside from working with one, they've been in my wheelhouse, in my space for a very long time. Like Cassandra said, my background is in practice medicine. So like many of you guys that I'm sure are watching this, I started in the kennels and worked my way up through, being an assistant, licensed technician, onto practice management, before I decided to come over and work on the industry side of things to help more practices better what they're doing, not only with their teams, but also with revenue with VerticalVet. So really excited to be here today. When I came to VerticalVet and I started talking with practices about group purchasing organizations, I was not astonished to actually learn that a lot of practice managers and practice know a little bit about GPOs, group purchasing organizations, also known as buying groups. They have a general idea, but don't really know many of the details, don't really know the ins and outs, don't know why it's a benefit. So really, this presentation came out of just kind of a public service, really wanting practices to understand that there is a lot of benefits they can unlock with their group purchasing organization. It makes a lot of sense for the independent practice owner. And so I'm really excited to talk a little bit about that today. So what is a group purchasing organization? The idea behind a group purchasing organization or buying group, I'll also use them or call them GPOs, is basically to allow an independent veterinary practice to have the leveraging power of a collective. So we all know about corporate practices, and they're coming up on a lot of different corners of our communities, and they have buying power because there's so many different locations that a corporate practices have that they're able to go to vendors and drug companies, distribution, and negotiate better pricing because of their size. So GPOs do that for the independent practice. It's lumping all of these independent practices together and then going to these different companies and being able to negotiate on behalf of practices. GPOs can help small and mid-sized companies receive some of the aggressive pricing that is usually reserved for enterprise businesses. So basically what that means is you might not have been able to get a really great discount on maybe that parasiticide, those vaccines, that product that you're using a lot of, because while you think you use a lot of it, as one entity, you probably aren't going through the numbers as much or as often as a larger or corporately owned practices are. And so by combining everybody together, we're able to offer better discounts. Some GPOs offer additional resources. So it's really important to understand that while a major cornerstone of group purchasing organizations or buying group is all about negotiated benefits, negotiated discounts or rebates, they offer a lot more than just that Costco card of VetMed, right? They can offer things from education, peer-to-peer learning, networking, marketing, resources, HR development. The list goes on, and every GPO kind of does things a little bit differently. So it's really cool to be able to start investigating what buying groups, what GPOs are out there, and what's going to fit your practice a little bit better. I love the history of GPOs because this just kind of puts it all into perspective. Cassandra and I were talking about this earlier today. So the first group purchasing organization was established in the human healthcare industry in 1910. Oh, that's crazy. Medicare and Medicaid stimulated the growth of the number of GPOs by 1974, and that number tripled as we moved through the 70s. Today, 90% of human healthcare providers are members of a group purchasing organization. 90%. So that means your hospitals that you're going to, the ERs, your general practitioner down the street, your foot doctor down the road. There's a good chance that they are all part of a group purchasing organization because that has been a standard of human healthcare. So it's exciting to see what we can do on the vet med side of things. Our growth isn't the same. So we really saw an increase in group purchasing organizations coming into the veterinary medicine space in the 80s. That's when we had kind of our first GPOs start coming up on the scene. And it's grown definitely over the last few decades. There's a lot more GPOs that are offered. Some can be very small with just a handful of practices. Others can be kind of on the larger side with thousands of practices they represent. Unlike human healthcare, veterinary practice leaders are unaware of the full scope of benefits a GPO can offer their practice, which is why we're here today. And this is one of those statistics. So in a recent study from the VHMA, 32% of practices were unaware of how their GPO affiliation benefited their practice. So that means that 32% of practices, they knew they were with that one group, but they are not sure of the name of that one group, and they know they get a discount, but they're not sure what that discount is, and it's something, right? It's common. I did the same thing. I remember so clearly being a practice manager at my practice, and my rep came in from distribution and said, "Hey, Megan, there's this group out there. I know you're ordering a whole lot of this product over here. They've partnered with that company. If you become a part of this group, you can get a discount on it." Okay, sign me up. That sounds great. Sure. Yeah, I'm on it. Do I remember what the name of that company was 2 hours later? No. All of my practice managers who are watching this, I mean, there's so much that are happening in our days and our hours and our minutes that it was hard to remember. I knew it was a benefit that I got for a product that I ordered a lot of, but I didn't really know anything outside of that. So really wanted to come with this presentation on like big takeaways that I want everyone to have. So when it comes to group purchasing organization in the vet med space, each one has different partnerships that they've created. So it's, every GPO that's out there hasn't partnered with all the same companies. Everyone's going to have a little bit different of a flavor. So when you're looking at your practice, whether you're currently affiliated with a GPO or not, it's always good to start at your super products. What are the products that you're using in your practice that makes the most sense? Usually that's going to be your vaccines and heartworm, flea, and tick. So that's usually where I tell people to start. What are the products that they're using there? Looking into kind of once you identify, like, what are my big pharma companies that I'm working for, you're also going to want to look at business solutions that are non-pharmaceutical that are affiliated with these companies. So if you are looking for help with your reminders, if you're looking for help with marketing, if you're looking for help with HR, you want to make sure that the group purchasing organization that you've partnered with have resources in all of those lanes to be able to help you. Again, the idea with being a member of a group purchasing organization is to get support. It's not just a discount club. There's a lot of different benefits that all of these companies offer, and it's just a matter of figuring out which one fits your practice the best. Ask yourself in your practice leadership, what are other areas that are important to them outside of the traditional GPO discounts? So if you have a staff that is really interested in continuing education, you would put that on your list. If you're wanting to grow your network, maybe you want to be able to create a space where you have practice managers or practice owners from across the country that you can network with, then that should be on your list. If you want to be able to connect with a small group on a pretty regular basis with like-minded individuals to discuss best practices, ideas, kind of generating that peer-to-peer learning, that's important. If marketing is on that list, if it's a cost of membership. So each of these group purchasing organizations out there have different membership fees, right? Because you do have to become a member. So it's really important to outline what's important to you as a practice and be prepared. So I usually recommend everyone typing those 5 things down, writing those 5 things that are important to them down as they get on some of these phone calls when they're interviewing or talking to a group purchasing organization. So you know what that company has to offer your practice.
Could you, Megan, give a couple examples for those priorities? You know, if they do have some included on their list that you gave as examples, what some of the ways are that GPOs might help in those areas?
Oh, great question. Yes. So a group purchasing organization, like I mentioned earlier, has partnerships. So they partner with companies that are on the pharmaceutical side. They partner with distribution companies. They partner with business companies. So things like payroll, website design, like Busy, right? And so when a GPO offers additional resources, it could be one of 2 things. It's either homegrown, meaning they've created a program or a suite of benefits that is run and managed by their internal team as a GPO. They also may farm some stuff out to their partners, right? So maybe they have a partner. I'm going to use you guys as an example. So Busy Sites has been a wonderful partner for VerticalVet, which is the company that I work for. And so we've had Cassandra and her team come in to do some really cool talks on building a really great website and how to get that engagement from your clientele online, some different, marketing webinars that we've done and that we're working on. So that's just an example of how one of our partners can benefit directly a practice that's not necessarily just looking for a service, right? They're not just looking for a website build out, but they're looking for help on how to create an efficiency around it, how to create a knowledge base to be able to grow their practice or grow their team or create a better culture. So it really can be, again, one of those 2 things. They're either going to be looking to their partnership to offering that continuing education or that tool, or they're going to be growing something within that GPO themselves that are going to be able to help practices with that. Great question. When you have found a GPO that fits your needs, so you've kind of gone through your product mix as far as your inventory, you've talked to your practice owner, you've talked to your practice manager, your team about what's important, if they want access to continuing education, they want access to peer-to-peer learning or marketing. Once you've kind of nailed that down, it's time to start, calling different group purchasing organizations out there. When I say calling, you absolutely can pick up the phone. Almost all of the GPOs that service vet med have phone numbers that you can reach out to. They have email addresses, and it's simple as sending an email that's saying you're interested. I always recommend talking to a representative to get a little bit better information than necessarily just going through email, but whatever fits your practice the best, whatever fits what you need the best. Once you've identified a group purchasing organization that fits your needs, it's really important to communicate. So usually what I find is that, like in my situation where I got signed up for a GPO, it was going to be a benefit to my practice, but I didn't know a whole lot about it. It's always important to communicate with your GPO on a regular basis because they're there to help your business. They're there to let you know of promotions that are going on. They're there to connect you to experts in an area that you might need help with. They are there to be able to help you grow your business. And if you don't call them or email them, you're really putting yourself at a disadvantage because there's a lot of resources that you might not know about. So really making sure that you're communicating with your representative at least once a quarter is important.
Sorry. I was just going to say that I think is true across the board. That resonates with me so much because we see the same thing with our clients. When they make the most of their service with us, they see the most success, online. And so it absolutely makes sense that, the more communication you have between yourself and your providers, the more you're aware of what they're offering and new discounts they might have or new resources or whatever, the more you're going to benefit from that membership.
It's so true. I mean, it's just kind of that line of communication. And I know right now it's really hard out there, you guys. My team and myself, we've done some relief work for practices throughout the last 18 months, and I know that it's crazy, and time is something that many of you don't have. But there's a benefit here that I want to kind of shine a light of importance on, because there's a good chance that if you're really connecting with your GPO, it can save your practice a lot of money, and it can help bring in maybe some new avenues to help grow the revenue of the practice. So it's not necessarily just about saving your way to prosperity, but it's also about creating these new channels to, pick up your marketing efforts, pick up your clientele, pick up your revenue. It's always important to look at your fixed costs in the practice and identify a company that's partnered with your GPO who offers a similar service. So that was a little bit wordy, but what that means is that you always want to look at the full partnership of a GPO, not just the pharmaceutical side of things. Because what's happened is your GPO has negotiated either a rebate or an upfront discount on a business asset service that you use in your practice, whether it be insurance, phone systems, credit card processing, website costs, inventory management. There's a good chance they have a partner in one of those lanes that has a really nice discount associated with that fee. There's nothing that's going to hurt getting a quote. So if you're able to really research, maybe you're using a credit card processing company, XYZ. There's nothing that says you can't get a quote from this partner that is affiliated with your GPO to see if they can come in a little bit better. Because that's a whole purpose of a GPO, is to be able to give leveraging power to these independent practices. And that's something the business costs of a practice are high. So why not look at alternatives there? Becoming an active member, the more that you are active within your GPO, you're reaching out to your representative, you're engaged in webinars, you're taking advantage of the promos that are happening. The more that you become an active member, the more your GPO is going to recognize you as an active member. And it may unlock additional benefits. You may be kind of the first one to know about a promotion, or you're just really taking advantage of that membership to the full extent by being an active member. Joining webinars, I know I just said that, but a lot of GPOs out there will do, whether it's on the medical side of things, whether it's on the business side of things, whether it's on the HR side of things, will do webinars to help practice managers, practice owners, practice leadership kind of help them through a problem or a topic that's of interest. And they're usually free. So why not take advantage of that, right? I mean, that's huge. Some of them are RACE approved, some aren't, but the information's there, and it's really important to take advantage of it. Joining additional programs your GPO offers. So like I had mentioned earlier, there's a lot of GPOs that have homegrown programs, or maybe programs that are affiliated with one of their partners. And if you're enrolled in these, there's usually some sort of special offer associated with it. But you have to ask. You have to ask, you have to read those emails, you have to be an active member in order to really take advantage of those programs. And then take advantage of quarterly promotions offered through your GPO. So I'm not saying you need to go out and spend $100,000 on, heartworm prevention and get, a big discount. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is those promotions that are offered on a quarterly basis, or maybe every 6 months, are usually a great way to be able to capitalize on your membership with that GPO. So there's going to be a promo that's going to be offered exclusively, usually, through your GPO that other practices that aren't affiliated don't have access to. So it might be a really great way to strategically order to make sure that you're getting the product that you need at a price point that's really good. Of course, my slide deck stopped, huh? There we go. Don't automatically delete emails from your GPO. I had to put this one on there because I am a culprit of doing that. So I remember very vividly being a practice manager, and I'd get to my computer and I would have a ton of emails that I'd have to go through, and I would see a promotional email and I'd be like, that's great, delete. I wish I hadn't done that. I feel like if my practice owner knew that I was doing that, she might look at me differently. But look at those emails. Maybe that's something that you're not interested in, that's fine, but there's a good chance that it might be something that could benefit your practice. So definitely open those emails.
I wish this one could be bolded and underlined.
Yeah, right.
It's so true.
Don't automatically
I do the same thing, but man, I wish it could be bold and underlined.
It is. And I want everyone to know that that email that's coming from you, it may be a mass email that looks, really fancy, but there's a person behind it. There's always a person behind it. On our team at VerticalVet, everyone that I work with has practice experience. There's a lot of GPOs that hire out of practices, that their teams are, primarily people who understand this industry. So when you're getting that email, someone put the time in to build it. Someone put the time in to send it, and someone took the time to really investigate a benefit that they think practices are going to want to take advantage of. So if you have that mindset when you're looking at your inbox, you're probably going to be more likely to open that because somebody took that time and wants to help your practice grow. Standardize with pharma companies associated with your GPO. Not saying that you have to do this by any stretch of the imagination, but the practices that usually get the biggest bang for their buck when it comes to year-end rebates are going to be practices that have standardized on super products, whether that's vaccines or parasiticides, heartworm, flea, and tick. So what that means is that it's okay to have a little bit, of a side product over here, but if you're standardizing on a product in your practice and you use, say, your online pharmacy to help supply those few clients over here that use product C and those 10 over there that use product D, they can get them on your online pharmacy, but in practice, you sell this product. Then there's most likely going to be rebates that you're getting from ordering that product on a pretty regular basis. Rebates have changed a lot in the last 10 to 15 years, I would say. It used to be a lot of rebates were based on sales. So the amount of product that you were buying generated how much rebate that you're getting. Well, what was happening was a lot of the bigger companies were seeing how much money they were kind of giving out in rebates. So these companies restructured their rebate models to go with more of a growth model, meaning that rebates are paid by how well your practice is growing within that product line. So by standardizing on a product, you're more likely to be growing with that product year over year and thus capitalizing on those back-end rebates than if you have all of the products in your pharmacy and you're ordering, 6 of this, 5 of that, 3 of those, 10 of these. Your primary distributor should absolutely be partnered with your GPO. So distribution, I'm talking MWI, I'm talking about Covetrus, Patterson, kind of the big 3. There's a few others. We're in the Southeast down here, so there's a few others that are in the territory down here. But you always want to make sure that the primary distributor that you use, meaning that distributor that you go to when you place your orders, and if they are out of a product, you go to your secondary distributor. Your primary distributor should be affiliated with your GPO because there's usually a price benefit that's associated there that they've negotiated between the distributor and that GPO to offer practices. So it doesn't make sense if the GPO that you're with is, primarily with a distributor that you might not use. You're not really getting all the benefits there.
So could a practice ask, so if I know my primary distributor is MWI and my MWI rep comes into my practice, would it make sense, should that rep be able to tell me, okay, here's the GPOs that we're partnered with if I'm shopping around for GPOs right now?
Absolutely, yes. So distribution reps are going to 100% know the GPOs that are going to make sense for your practice. Still recommend doing the research on your own, but definitely going to your rep is going to be top of the list of people who can understand and help you navigate the territory a little bit. You can also look at your pharmaceutical rep. So, you have a really good relationship with your Merck rep or your Virbac rep. Those are great people to reach out to as well and ask them what they think and who they're partnered with. Understand what benefits are with a particular product or service. So there's a big difference between an upfront discount and a back end rebate. There's also a difference between free CE and CE that you have to pay for, right? So you want to really understand the nuances of those benefits. And just because they might be one way one year doesn't mean it's going to be the same thing next year. And that's something that's really important. I know all of us in vet med, we don't like change. We're not really good at it. We like things the way they are. We have systems in place for a reason. I am totally with that, y'all. But it's really important to understand that the industry side of veterinary medicine is always changing. You guys see it on the news. You see, so-and-so got acquired by so-and-so, and this partner or this company over here is no longer. I mean, we've seen all of these changes happen on the industry side of things. So it's really important to revisit what partners your GPO has year over year, because they may change, and understanding what those benefits are. If it's, if the, benefit that you're getting is a 3% rebate on the back end, you should probably ask the questions if that's back to $1, or if that's, once you've spent $20,000. Ask those questions, investigate. Make sure you mention you're a member of a GPO when talking with account representatives. This is a big one. So a lot of times your GPO is going to have a list of their members that they're going to share with their partners, so their partners know who their members are. But if you're like me, at one point, my practice was affiliated with 3 different GPOs all at the same time. So you really want to make sure that you standardize on a GPO. Being members of everybody does not make more benefit. It probably makes less benefit. So you really just want to stick with that one GPO, maybe 2, if there's another one that, maybe has a company that you use often. But outside of that, you want to let anybody that's coming into your practice know that you're a member of whatever company that might be. Why? The reason why is because partnerships change all the time. Just like I mentioned, things happen year over year with GPOs. So you want to make sure that you're staying fresh. You also want to make sure that that representative knows that you're a member, so that they can offer maybe an exclusive benefit that just came out between them and their GPO. So it's really a great way to make sure that everyone knows who you're affiliated with, that you're getting those discounts and rebates that you are allowed to because you're affiliated for. And ask for transparency. You shouldn't have to question or wonder how things happen with GPOs. So if there's a question that you have about how that rebate was calculated, ask it. If you have a question about, why a GPO exists, ask it. And you should be able to get a really transparent answer. It shouldn't be, oh, well, we can't tell you that, or I don't have an answer to that. You should know. You have a right to know. So ask.
Super quick question that came up, which actually ties in well along the lines of transparency. So when joining a GPO, are members required to use, or do they have to use all the partners aligned with the GPO?
Oh, that's a great question. No, not usually. I feel like there's a caveat here that I need to talk about. So no, there isn't necessarily a GPO that says you have to use all of these partners. If you use anybody else, we're going to kick you out. That's not really how GPOs work. We highly recommend partnerships because there's been some sort of benefit negotiated. So why would a practice not take advantage of that, for one? 2, a lot of partnerships that are partnered with GPO, a lot of partners that are partnered with GPOs, they're partnered for a reason. They do well in this space. They are great in continuing education. They do X, Y, and Z perfectly, right? So there is usually a reason why that GPO is partnered with that company. So you should investigate that, right? You should see why. Why did they partner with it? What benefit is there? And that can really help. Compliance is a thing. So we talk about it when I was working at practices. We want our pet owners to be compliant with our policies and procedures at our practices on our wellness care. Compliance is also important for veterinary practice as well, because the more compliant that the members of a GPO are, most likely the better discounts and rebates are going to be offered year over year, right? Because if you're having more growth within a certain sector, then there's a good chance that that pharmaceutical partner or that distribution partner is going to award even bigger benefits because you're showing that consistency. You're showing that being compliant. So you're not going to get kicked out because you're using another partner that might not be affiliated, but it's always good to look into those partnerships and revisit them to see if it makes sense for your practice. Great question though, love it. There's so much more to your GPO than just rebates. Rebates are great, but you usually have to spend more to get more. So kind of what I said earlier, bulk purchasing is great. I know there's a lot of practices that do it. There's a lot of practices that don't. There's no right or wrong answer. But don't just join a GPO because they offer a rebate. Don't do what I did. Really investigate, ask questions, and see what makes most sense to your practice. Understand the upfront discounts. Upfront discounts have the ability to affect what you're spending. Excuse me. Upfront discounts have the ability to affect your money that you're spending right there. Back-end rebates, you have to spend more to get more. So the idea of an upfront discount should be more appealing than a back-end rebate because you don't have to spend that money. You get to keep that money in savings in the pocket and in your books, all of that. So upfront discounts can be more lucrative than back-end rebates. And there may be benefits in the form of free services to take a look at as well. So that might be social media. Maybe there's some sort of benefit around social media that's free. Maybe there's a marketing service. Maybe there's some sort of evaluation, maybe insurance valuation, maybe a website evaluation, right? There can be free services that are associated that you should absolutely take advantage of. A lot of times they're used as an educational purpose. So don't think that you're going to get on a call and it's going to be a sales pitch, because there's probably an educational aspect to it as well. And then cost of your membership. Know how much you're spending on your GPO and make sure that your benefits outweigh what you're spending. So if you're spending $1,000 on a membership, you want to make sure that you're getting at least $1,000 back in benefits, whether that be in discounts, whether that be in back-end rebates, or whether that be in free services. But know how much you're spending, know when you're spending it. Every GPO is different. Some escrow out of rebates, some have quarterly fees, some have yearly fees, some have fees in the thousands of dollars, some have fees in hundreds of dollars. Some have fees that are even less than that. So it's really important to understand that all of these are different and to really understand what you're paying for as far as your membership goes. And then takeaway. My team really tried to find like a really cool, name for this. We have LACE. I don't know if that does the trick, but takeaways from today's conversation is going to be leverage. So leverage your GPO. Ask questions, see what benefits you get, flex the fact that you're a member so that you can take advantage of those and you can leverage your membership. Align with the partnerships that your GPO has, because there's a good chance that they're going to be able to get you something in your practice, whether it be a service or a product, for a less amount. Communicate. Active communication is so important to make sure that you're staying up to date with the services that your GPO is offering, and regularly evaluate it. What may have worked for your practice last year might not work next year. What may have worked 5 years ago might not work next year. So really continue to evaluate what you're using, how you're using it, and what's important to you as a practice to decide what makes the most sense as far as who you're partnering with. Anybody is more than welcome to email me or call. This is absolutely my cell phone number, so feel free to call it at any time. Whether you're a member of VerticalVet, whether you're interested in GPOs, whether you have questions about GPOs in general, I am absolutely here. Feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Megan. We do have a couple lingering questions, but before we ask those, I did want to just reiterate, because I think I might have brushed over it too quickly at the beginning. So for those of you who don't know where the Q&A is, it's down at the bottom of your screen. You should see a Q&A button. Feel free to tap on that and ask any other questions. I know we have a couple of you that have been using it. But if anyone else does, I just wanted to make sure, because the thought occurred to me that we may have some with us who have not used Zoom webinars before, because there's so many webinar platforms out there now.
Yes, there is.
So feel free to chime in with those. I had a question that kind of popped in my head, and then I know, Michael, I think there's a couple, or at least one that you have that we need to get answered too from the Q&A queue. At Busy Sites, we're really big on analytics, right? And we want to show our clients that there's an ROI, with what the work that they're putting in, the investment that they're making with their marketing. I was curious if that is something that can be done with a GPO too. So would you recommend that a practice track their savings that they've had, over the years, with their GPO or over that year? Or is that something that a GPO would offer, kind of on the side of transparency? Or what are your thoughts on that as far as knowing that they're getting the most out of their GPO?
Yeah, it's a great question. So one of the things that's important to remember when it comes to GPOs is that a lot of GPOs don't have access to your sales data. So that means that what you're spending on a regular basis through your distribution, your GPO doesn't see every order that you're placing or how you're placing it. They may get a general report to some degree that says, how much you've spent within a certain category, but it's not going to break it down into, I made this order on February 15th. It just doesn't work that way. Now, you can absolutely track your savings. There's different tools that different GPOs utilize, whether that's a sales tracker that's associated with ordering platform, or your distribution platform, ordering platform. There's other areas that you can look into. So you can work with the drug reps that are coming in that may be affiliated with a partner that your GPO has, and they're going to be able to show you, because of your membership with XYZ company, you were able to save $5,000, and they can give you that sales report. When it comes to the business solution companies, it's a little bit harder to track that, Cassandra, and that's just because what you spent with that phone service, I don't really know what you're spending with this phone service. Is it apples to apples? Is it apples to oranges? But it's always a good idea to have an idea of what you're currently spending and what a quote might be for a similar product or service. And that changes. It can change year over year as well. So usually when it comes to growth for rebate opportunities, being able to grow year over year at a speed in which might make sense to capitalize on those back-end rebates can be really difficult for a practice. So I usually tell our practices that the big growth rebates are kind of an every other year thing. And that's definitely something that you can track just on, your sales with the companies that offer those rebates.
Absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. It's kind of similar on our end, like how we know how many people scheduled an appointment with you, but we don't know how much money they spent in the appointment.
Exactly.
So it's kind of a similar thing. That makes a lot of sense. All right. Do we have a couple others as well? I think.
This one's a little bit of a big one, but it's a good one to help us round off. What is the biggest difference between all of the GPOs in the vet med space?
Oh.
It's like, I don't know, how many are there?
Difference? So I would say for me, kind of looking back at when I was managing my practice, it was really important for me to be able to have a point of contact, whether that was my rep, whether that was, my inside sales rep, whether that was the field rep that came into my practice. But I liked having that point of contact. So when I had an issue, I had a cell phone number I could call, I could text them, I could email them. It wasn't this obscure, 1-800 call this, and I waited on hold for 15 minutes. So I would say probably one of the biggest differences that you're going to see within all of the different GPOs is how they communicate with their members. Whether it's easy to get a hold of them, whether it's difficult, whether you leave messages or you get someone right away. That's definitely a thing that's kind of different amongst all of the different GPOs. And then I would also say on that list is going to be how invested these GPOs are in with business solutions, because let's be real. You're running a practice, but your practice is a business, your business to be profitable. So if you're able to partner with a GPO that has aligned with companies that help the business side of things, that's only going to make business more valuable. And so it's really important to look at that when you're looking at these GPOs. And I think that's one of the biggest things that kind of separates all of the different GPOs is the end on business solutions. Great question.
It's a big one. That was great. We've got a couple others kind of more on the technical side of things. So we just went from like the big umbrella ultimate question. Now we're going to get a little more granular. So one I believe is a pretty quick one. We have someone asking if VGP is considered a GPO.
Yes, VGP is definitely a GPO. I've always joked that most of the veterinary GPOs have like 2 or 3 letter acronyms. So we all kind of fit into that category, but VGP is Veterinary Growth Partners, and they're very much a GPO.
Okay, perfect. And then the other one, which this is really interesting to me, this is why I love the questions that people ask, because it's so many things I wouldn't think of. What is the proper way to dissociate from a vendor who is not part of the GPO?
So I guess I'm a little with that question, is it, how to like break up from a partner that's not with the GPO? Is that where we're going out with this?
I think so. Maybe also just how to so let's say if I'm using one vendor that is not part of GPO and there's a comparable vendor who is part of the GPO, how to kind of handle that transition, I think is probably
absolutely. So a couple different ways that you can handle it. One, I mean, you can just move your business and they'll find out as your sales drop that you went with a different company for a product or a service. But I mean, I'm a huge fan of clear communication. So if there's a reason why you're leaving, maybe it's price, letting your current company know that you're leaving because you're able to get a similar comparable service or product for a less amount of money. Maybe it's communication. Maybe you just don't have a clear communication lane with that partner that you're moving away from. And that was one of the reasons why you decided to make the change. I think every practice is going to be a little bit different on how they navigate that. And it's really what kind of relationships you've created with that partner that I think dictates kind of how you break up with them.
Absolutely. I think especially too, when you might see, as kind of you pointed out, so many different services they could offer. I think also letting them know if you're leaving because there's a service, that another one offers that you want to take advantage of, that they don't have. I know coming from the vendor side of things, that's how we learn and grow what the priorities are to veterinary practices. Because all of a sudden, if I have a few clients say, man, we really wanted this one service, maybe that's something we should look into as well. I would imagine it's the same.
Exactly. And it's also important to understand, and I should have said this earlier, you're not stuck with your GPO forever. Just because it maybe fit your needs at one point in time doesn't mean that you can't try something else out for a year and maybe you like it, maybe you don't, and then you go back. There's nothing that says that you can't do that. But I always recommend giving at least a full year to take advantage of the benefits, because it's not possible to stay, a month or even a quarter and say, oh, I'm not getting all of the great benefits that I thought I should. You really need to give it a year.
That makes perfect sense. All right. I think that covers all the questions that we had.
Awesome.
So thank you so much, Megan, for your time in talking about this. I did want to mention to everyone who's here, because Megan was so great about keeping it just general, no matter who you're a part of, how you can benefit from that. But as she mentioned at the outset, VerticalVet is also a GPO, but they call themselves a group resource community because they do so much more than help you save money. They are one of our partners at Busy Sites. That's why we have them here as part of our partner university program. And the reason they're one of our partners and one of my very, very valued partners is because we have a lot of priorities in common. So they're really big on education, just as much as we place an emphasis on educating our clients about their website with analytics and consultation and things. VerticalVet really does the same with their members, and they take really, really good care of everyone who crosses their path. So we've really enjoyed working with them. We have plans to continue doing that. So for those of you that are Busy Sites clients that are attending the webinar, if you're interested in learning more about VerticalVet, like Megan said, you have her information right here. You're also welcome to reach out to your account manager at Busy Sites, and they will absolutely point you in the right direction. We may be able to answer some questions for you and then make that warm handoff to Megan. They do have some cool offers on the table for Busy Sites clients as well. So that's absolutely something you may want to learn more about. But otherwise, thanks for being here, Megan.
Yeah,
thank you for
having
watching.
me.
Of course. Thank you, Michael, for managing the question queue as well. And we hope we'll see you all on our next one in the winter.
Thanks, guys. I hope everyone has a great night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.